key guys here.
Right there, you got to get your people open.
John Stockton, a real gamer, though. What a tough kid.
Oh, a tough guy. He's going to come up. He's going to take just the 8-second count and get right back up.
And here he goes now trying to fight through. We're going to slow this down and take another look because, man, another jolt to the jaw for Stockton.
Yeah, and Jerry Sloan doesn't like it. But John is administering a little bit of punishment of his own. Looking at him give the elbow into Buck Williams to try to make room for himself to get through the pick. Buck says, no way.
He got better than he gave, I believe.
Yeah, he did.
Karl Malone, he's got to carry the scoring load here, but off the mark often on Tuesday night.
You know, Karl had a very poor shooting night, partly due to his being out of rhythm, but I think more likely due to Portland not allowing him to get to his prime spots. Even that spot underneath the basket was a bit occupied.
Yeah, that's one of his prime ones, but it's like landing on Boardwalk, and there was Duckworth in the middle to slam that thing out of there. Clyde Drexler, more physical play here.
Yeah,
boy, look at the pop he takes right in the ribs.
The mailman delivers once again, but this turned out to be kind of a key turning point in the game, Ernie.
It got him fired up, and Clyde Drexler, man, he took over.
Yep.
Drexler for three.
Man, they raised the roof at Memorial Coliseum. They're one of the best home teams in basketball, and they really felt it from there. Clyde Drexler hits the J. Here we go on the running.
Well, Clyde got the three right after getting his ribs caved in, then takes it full court all the way. And he could have dished that off, but I think he wanted to make the statement that I'm all right, and he slammed that one home.
Yeah, 20-3 run, critical in that game. You take a look at these stats, and what sticks out?
Well, the stats are very similar to game one in the Detroit-Boston game. The team that rebounds tend to hold the other team's field goal percentage down, and so they've got to do the same thing.
Number two, the big question, will the Blazers be as motivated and as mentally ready as they were for game one? We will find out. The Blazers had their shoot-around earlier this morning. It was closed to the press. Here they are coming out of it. They can take a commanding 2-0 lead in the best-of-7 series with a win, and to a man, they'll tell you that they expect the Jazz to be better tonight than on Tuesday, and Kevin Duckworth is a little banged up.
You know, yesterday when I was in the game, I ran down court and I bumped knees with somebody, so that really got it flared up again, so it's just sore today, that's all.
Not slowing you down at all, though?
Might a little bit, but, you know, I'll try to forget about it while I'm playing.
Well, I think I'm still adjusting to my role. Once I do get in the game, I try not to take a quick shot. I like to run up and down the court several times to get loose, get a feel for it, and then I'll feel comfortable having my legs underneath me to take a shot.
Meanwhile, in the Jazz camp, the theme for tonight is not letting the Blazers run wild with that big spurt in the second half. That's what did them in the other night. John Stockton says even a momentary letdown is deadly against the Blazers.
Can't even have little mental let-ups for even a couple minutes against a great team because they just take too good of advantage of it, and you can't recover sometimes. So we have to concentrate for 48 and not let those big runs happen like they did last game. A lot of guys, I guess power forwards are guys like that, whether they can shoot out there or not, they don't. But with me, I'm going to take whatever you give me, and that's part of the game is just sort of get them to rocking back on their feet, and then you go inside. So if they start off the night the same way and leave me open, I'm going to start off the same way tonight.
That guy is dangerous anytime he's got a basketball on his
Effort
hand.
set the tone in this series, or will it fire up Utah even more? We'll find out in Game 2 tonight at 7 o'clock. Ron Carlson joins us now from the Coliseum with more. Ron?
Well, Steve, as you know, after the Blazers made the trade to acquire Walter Davis earlier this year, a lot of NBA critics said the Blazers were shoo-ins to make the NBA Finals. But as you all know, that shoe hasn't fit all that easily for Walter this year until Game 1 on Tuesday night. The playoffs started like a dud for one of the NBA's all-time top guns. Against Seattle, Walter Davis shot blanks. In his last 3 games of the series, he didn't hit a single shot, finishing up 0 for his last 7. The Greyhound was rusty.
I was looking to pass first, then shoot, and coaches told me he doesn't want me doing that, that when I'm open, he wants me, everybody on the team expecting me to take that shot.
Walter obeyed. In Game 1 against Utah, he hit his first shot. Then his second shot. Davis finished hitting 6 of 9 from the floor. Once again, the Greyhound was chasing Rusty.
It felt really good to be able to, help these guys out.
Notice Walter still answers these guys instead of us. it's still part of the tough transition he's going through from the spotlight in Denver to spot performances in Portland. Plus, Walter didn't want to interfere with the Blazers' great team chemistry.
That's why I think I was so tentative, because the guys have been so good to me that I didn't want to do anything to mess up this great situation or this great team. So I just tried to fit in as well as possible.
He's been super. I mean, he's fit in with the team. You know, he's played hard all the time. His attitude's been great. You know, you couldn't ask for more from a player who really is one of the all-time great scorers in the game, and to come in and accept the role like he has just been tremendous.
And if he can keep being tremendous against the Jazz, the fans will begin to appreciate him more, too.
We'll just have to get a Greyhound out here at the track named after Walter Davis now.
Well, I don't know about that. It has to be an old one.
All right, well, we're with one of the younger guys on the team now, compared with Walter, that's for sure, Kevin Duckworth. Kevin's actually been leading the team in scoring against Utah this year with 17 points a game, and that's kind of hard to believe when you go up against a guy who towers over you like Mark Eaton does. He's got a huge wingspan, doesn't he, Kevin?
Yeah, Mark's a big guy. Well, shoot a lot of jump shots. He's not going to come run out there too fast.
I know that's part of the offense really for you when you play the Jazz, is to get or Mark out of the middle, isn't it?
It is, yeah, because it gives us a lot of options to attack them. Clyde gets a chance to penetrate, Terry gets a chance to penetrate. Because with Mark in the basket, it eliminates us big time to stop them, you know, let's stop us from getting a little easy scoring and stuff.
Looks like there's fire in your eyes tonight, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm a little upset about something, but I'm fine.
Take it out on the court, huh?
You got it.
Okay, Kevin, thanks a lot. Steve, back to you.
Ron, thank you. Kevin, good luck tonight. Remember, Channel 2 Sports will present another expanded playoff report tonight on our 11 o'clock newscast. Join us for all the highlights, interviews, and analysis tonight. Isaiah Thomas. Out.
The Portland Trailblazers, a 20-point winner over the Utah Jazz 48 hours ago, will try and hit for Salt Lake City this weekend with a 2-0 lead. Maybe it's that Blazer fans have long enough memories to recall the 1988 playoffs that make them a little apprehensive tonight. In that series, the Trailblazers opened with a win here, lost Game 2, and then dropped 2 games in a row in Salt Lake City. This, of course, is a better and deeper team and a happier and more composed team, and we'll talk about that as we get on with our NBA report. On this evening's program, we're going to give you a chance to catch up on some of the more colorful characters and personalities of the NBA. Utah Jazz broadcaster Hot Rod Hundley, the former West Virginia All-American, will be the subject of a one-on-one interview with Mike Rice. Steve Jones will later talk with Clyde Drexler, and we'll have special features on Portland's second-year forward Cliff Robinson and on Utah Jazz president Frank Layden. First of all, let's bring in one of basketball's more well-liked and worldly personalities, Steve Jones. Steve, today there was an early game, an afternoon game, East Coast time, morning game, West Coast time. Larry Bird played, Isaiah Thomas didn't, and that might have been part of the story as Boston evened their series with Detroit.
Well, there's no question that that was a story, because that was a reversal of roles for Game 1. So Boston wins and evens the series, but Boston had a game plan, and I think that they worked it well. Pace, they wanted to keep the game at a faster tempo than the Pistons wanted. You saw them come out of the ball game with Brian Shaw pushing, the same sort of attitude that the Indiana Pacers had at them. They even quick shot the basketball to induce the Detroit Pistons to do the same. So they need Isaiah Thomas, who is perhaps the best player on the Pistons team, at playing at pace, but also gearing it back and getting them into their offense.
Well, you know how much I love players like you, the guys that could shoot. And you know, I was in heaven last night watching Chris Mullin and Magic Johnson. And again, it's your theme, pace. Golden State got it, came away with a win.
Well, you should have been on the couch kicking your feet and screaming. It was a delicious game to watch. The one thing that you know, that if you can't shut down the big three, you're going to have a tough time. And they made Magic Johnson do something that he doesn't want to do, score, and score a lot of points. And if you check his history, only once has he scored more than 40 points, and it turned into a win. He scored 42 his rookie year. They won the championship. Since then, a 43-point game twice against Phoenix. They lost both of those ball games. A career-high 44 in the playoffs last night. They lost that. What he'd rather see and what they'd rather see is a lot of assists for him and point distribution for everyone else.
Well, the Portland-Utah series brings some interesting matchups, and tempo is also a big key, and Steve will be talking to us about that when the NBA report continues in a short time. We've got 3 trivia questions for you, and we'll find out what your scorecard looks like at the end of the program. Right after that, Mike Rice goes one-on-one with Utah's colorful broadcaster, Hot Rod Hundley.
Hot Rod, this Utah team, they said they built it with the idea of the playoffs in mind. Is that the way you look at it?
Well, I would think any team, if you're building to win, you're building obviously for the playoffs. I don't know if there's any standard truth to that statement, building for the playoffs, but you're obviously building just to be the best basketball team you can put on the floor. And they have the nucleus, obviously, it's Stockton and Karl Malone, and if you can build around that, this team potentially could be a world champion.
Jeff Malone, he hasn't signed, and there's been some articles in a lot of the papers about this may be bothering him. The way he shot the other night, is Jeff Malone thinking of just the playoffs?
I don't think so. You know, he's been bothered by his back, and of course, I think the Jazz are a little bit suspect about his injury problems. And you want to sign this guy to a big contract. He wants big bucks. He already wants over $3 million a year. I don't understand those numbers, but he went 0 for 10 in the first half against Phoenix in Game 4. Came back, shot 7 out of 8 in the second half. We break the game open and won it. He comes out on the floor on the interview afterwards, which I was interviewing him, and he said to the crowd, and they loved it, he said, I think it was a good trade. They traded for him, and, you know, that's the first time he has ever won a playoff, by the way. He played 6 playoffs with the Bullets, got beat in the first round every time. Of course, they're always playing Boston or Detroit Pistons. And here he gets by the first round, first time ever. And he likes to think, in which he deservedly should think, he had something to do with it.
Yeah. Speaking of Malone's, Karl, 1 for 11 in the second half. Is that as bad as he shot all year?
0 for 10 in the third quarter. I mean, I didn't even realize what was going on, that he had actually shot those 10, you know, while you're doing the game.
Right.
That's about as bad as I guess we've seen him in the second half. He had a pretty good first half, and he got 1 bucket, and that was a layup, and 2 free throws in the second half, and that was it. But he is, I think, you know, I see him every day, the best power forward in basketball. I mean, the guy's 6'9", he weighs 260, he can run like a deer. He loves to play. He enjoys it. He enjoys practice. He enjoys everything.
Yeah.
And he's the best. And every night he takes that punishment. They gang up on him. There's 2, 3 people. I mean, he takes it. He gets knocked down. He doesn't say anything for the most part. He'll get up and run on and play.
Now, this, you doing a game last night, if you criticize Karl Malone at all, you're traveling with the team, the market is very much like Portland, Utah. It's the only thing in town. Can you criticize when you do a brawl game, the Jazz, and live with it?
He was quoted in National Magazine. They did a story on me, by the way, not too long ago, and he said that Hot Rod sometimes forgets who he works for. So obviously I'm criticizing him, and I took it as a compliment. As you know, being in this business, I'm not a cheerleader or you know, a barker for this ball club, and even though I want the Jazz to win, I'm going to call it as it is. When he takes a bad shot, I'll say a very poor percentage shot, and I'll just, in my description, he shouldn't have taken it. And then when he makes one of those, I'll say, as Jerry Sloan jumps up all the men and says, no, Karl, no, add a baby Karl, so he goes in the basket, you know, so you got to live with it both ways.
Stockton versus Porter. That's kind of a classic matchup. Both are very hitty guards. Will that be the determining factor in the rest of the series?
Well, you know, Terry Porter was quoted in USA Today before the first game that the biggest matchup in this series is going to be me against John Stockton, quoting himself. So I can believe that, yes. He's a very strong player. He physically is stronger than John. He's not as good a passer, even though he's a very good passer. For sure, anyone in the world is good as Stockton, in my opinion, as point guard. Right. And I always say, Magic Johnson is not a point guard. Look, Magic Johnson is like Larry Bird. He can run and play anywhere he wants. He can do whatever he wants. He doesn't just do the duties of a point guard. For that position, I don't think I've ever seen anyone play this game that's better than John Stockton. So when you compare Terry Porter, I think Terry Porter's a great player. But I just think it's unfair to compare anybody with John. I think he's just absolutely the best.
Comparing Rick Adelman, Jerry Sloan, they're a lot alike. They're player coaches. They don't yell a lot. How is it traveling with someone like Jerry Sloan? Will he get this club ready for this second game?
He does. You know, he has that intensity. In quoting John Stockton, he says, I get charged up for a game just watching Jerry walk in the dressing room because Sloan is so intense. It carries over as a player. He'd knock your block off as a player and just look at you laying on the floor. That's the way he was taught, the way he was raised. He's a farm boy from southern Missouri and Southern Illinois, and He's growing up that way to be tough. He played that way. He coaches that way.
Right.
But he keeps it inside. He's a very quiet person. But he's a lovable man, believe it or not. I mean, he is a very nice person. Everybody likes Jerry Sloan. It's the fans that don't see that other side of him.
Right.
Rick Adelman, I know Rick a little bit from playing in the NBA back when he was first starting, and I was in my last year in '63, and I've known Rick a long time. Very quiet guy, very much like Jerry. And both are very knowledgeable coaches.
You missed the limelight ever. You were a great, great college player, great NBA player. Is there a change from broadcasting to playing?
I'm very happy with what I'm doing. You know, when I first started broadcasting, I've been in this for 24 years. I missed it a little bit. I think the times you miss is when you see a guy making what I call it, like a dumb play, to be very blunt about it, and you say, oh, then you want to, why can't I be out there? I mean, I would never have made that play. You look what they're paying that guy, and he made that dumb play. You know? But for the most part, no, I love what I'm doing. I think it's the next best thing, if not better, than playing. And basketball's been great to me. I love the NBA. I think it's the greatest sports game or sporting event there is pro basketball, put it that way. NBA basketball is the best, and I love it.
The guards, since you've played till you've seen it all broadcasting, have the guards taken over the NBA from the centers?
Not really, I don't think so. I think, number one, that all players today are so much better than when I played. And my last year was in the early 60s, so I'm talking 28 years. Over that period of time, I think anyone that played when I played is kidding themselves to think that they could play with these guys today, with the exception of Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, Oscar Robertson. The great players could play anytime. Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain could compete today, but not be as dominant as they were. They'd still be great. But as far as taking over the game, there's no one man like Wilt Chamberlain. You got 101 game, 4,000 in 1 year.
Yeah.
He averaged 50 a game and made second team All-Pro. Russell made first team. I mean, that scared you. You know? They were dominating centers. We don't have that today. Like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the last one that really dominated. And I also was always a big fan of Bill Walton, who played here and won a world championship. I thought maybe he was the best center of all time, but he never had the longevity to prove it because of injuries. But for one game, a 7-game series, nobody was better than Bill Walton.
Yeah, that Kevin Duckworth says a lot. I wish I had played back then because all the guards were playmakers and they'd throw it into the centers. Now he said they don't even need a center.
That's a good point because everybody today is so good, which I mentioned, they're so much better players. They can beat you one-on-one. In the old days, you had to have help. Yeah. And it was more of a team game. Today, you know, you see Michael Jordan come down 3 guys back. He takes them all and goes right by them and scores. If you did that in the old days and missed the shot, you're out of the game. The coach said, what are you doing? Today, you can get away with that because they are so talented. So therefore, you eliminate a lot of your play into the center man.
Lastly, does Golden State playing 4 guards have a chance to beat the Lakers?
I think Golden State's got an excellent chance. TMC, they call them. Run TFC with Chris Mullin and Tim Hardaway and Mitch Richmond. They can get 90 or better every night. They're a threat, and if the 3 of them are hot, you are in a world of trouble because Nelly will run over those little different combinations, and he forces big people out of the game. And, you know, they always say, well, he's got to guard the big man. Well, what about the big man's got to guard him? And that little guy's quicker, faster, can shoot better, so it works in his favor. Yes, to answer your question, they beat San Antonio. They got the home court advantage now. They're confident. They're playing well. I think Golden State's play with any of them.
Last question. Can Utah beat Portland in this series?
They got to win it tonight. If they win tonight, they got them. Because I'll tell you what, Portland doesn't want to go down. That's all Palace, boy. Nobody wants to go in there. And if you give the Jazz this game, you go in there even up, all of a sudden now the confidence factor turns. But if Portland wins this game, I don't think the Jazz can beat them. But if they win this one, look out, boy. Karl Malone will go after some people down in the Salt Palace.
At Portland's Memorial Coliseum, the fans beginning to pour in, ready for Game 2, Round 2 in this best-of-7 series, with the Blazers leading 1-0. If Hot Rod Huntley was and remains one of the most colorful and outspoken characters in the NBA, so is the president of the Utah Jazz, Frank Layden. When we return, we'll profile Frank Layden as the NBA Report continues.
Inspector Clouseau.
Frank Layden has worn many different hats during his career with the Jazz: general manager, coach, and president. Well, now he's taken his act back on the road, this time as an analyst for the NBA Radio Network.
I really like it. When I walk away after a game, though, I don't find myself worrying about a loss. I'm not fighting with the referees.
The guy didn't even let the ball go.
I'm not fighting with the fans.
They have to restrain Frank Layden. He's trying to go into the crowd after a fan.
It's been fun and it's been interesting, too. I'm learning a lot. And he was Brick City when he came in the league as a foul shooter. I look to bring out what the fans would be interested in, and I think sometimes because I've been in coaching that I can have some of the insight of what a player may be thinking after a win or a loss or before a big game.
Frank's got an identity problem. He doesn't have one.
In previous TV appearances, Layden's insight was covered up by the trademark that made him famous: humor. Layden admits that may have hurt his image as a serious broadcaster. Well, now in his role as an analyst, the former NBA Coach of the Year is using both.
You can get a lot of guys who can X and O, but don't have any humor and can't be concise. Frank brings that rare wit to the ball game, and like I say, it's not a war out there. We try to have fun with it, and as well as be informative and entertaining, and he brings all of those elements to the broadcast.
The shot by Ewing is missed. His first free throw try tonight. He's at the one.
Oh, he's got very big feet.
One element Frank tries to eliminate is criticism, especially when covering the Jazz.
I already told him when I took the job that I would be impartial and very fair in all but the Utah games. You know, Utah is my team. It's my life, and that can't change overnight. But I will try to be fair.
As well as the Knicks have shot, they still only have 107 points. 109.
Whether or not Layden makes a career out of broadcasting remains to be seen. In the meantime, he'll continue to polish up on his latest act.
Right now, I feel that I'm just a rookie, learning the game, and I'm just missing those shots maybe by an inch or two, and sometimes my shot selection is bad.
Frank Layden's trademark is his size and wonderful sense of humor, certainly one of this league's most loved personalities. Cliff Robinson has made the headband his trademark. It hasn't been in such vogue in the National Basketball Association since Slick Watts wore it in Seattle in the mid-1970s. Let's catch up with the Trailblazers' second year forward.
Goes to the far side. Robinson gets it. Turns out. Shoots. He hits. Back-to-back baskets by Cliff Robinson.
When I'm on the court, I'm excited. I love to play.
Robinson breakaway over the back. Yes, sir. He loved that.
When I'm out there and the crowd is there, I just get excited. They're here to watch us play. And if you don't go out there and do your best and have a good time at it and show them that you're having a good time so they can have a good time, then it's no fun. When I'm not excited and, you know, expressing myself, then that's when I'm afraid that, you know, my game isn't the way I want it to be. Because, you know, I feed off the energy that the crowd gives.
The feeling is mutual. An animated play by Cliff Robinson can stir up the crowd at Memorial Coliseum. After last year's up-and-down rookie season, Cliff has grown dramatically as a player and has now made general managers all over the NBA wonder why they let him slip into the second round of the draft.
I'm not disappointed with it now as I was before. You know, I bet any one of those teams that passed me by then would be glad to have me now.
A lot of players come to this league thinking they can do anything and not realizing what they can and can't do. And Cliff has really worked hard at understanding what his strengths are this year.
And I think as you see the years go on, he's going to get better at understanding what his strengths are and really play to them, because when he does, he can play all three frontline positions and not many people can stop him.
The ringing in of the new year saw a change in Cliff physically. Gone was the hair, replaced by multiple headbands in team colors.
Terry was having a little dinner party over at his house, New Year's Eve, and I needed to cut my hair, and it was really looking bad, and I didn't want to go over there looking like that. So I had my brother, you know, trim me up a little bit in the back, and It didn't come out too good. He trimmed it up instead of, he just messed it up, so I had to take it off. And that night I remember doing it. It was heartbreaking because it took me so long to grow it.
Craig Robinson may not be cutting Cliff's hair again soon, but Cliff enjoys having his brother share his apartment and giving him moral support.
It's been really helpful for me. It's, you know, he's, you know, the guy that helps me, you know, take care of business. Person here to talk to me when I'm not feeling, you know, feeling too good. You know, he makes me laugh. My brother.
When not playing NBA basketball, Cliff is likely to be playing another kind of basketball. Video games, including one that he can pit the Blazers against other NBA teams, are a big part of his recreational time.
Larry Bird can't stop me from going by him. What is that?
Robinson has gone by the best of them with regularity in his 2 NBA seasons. His added maturity on the court is a given, but he's changed off the hardwood as well. 1 year ago, Cliff was arrested for assault outside a Portland nightclub. The case was settled out of court with Robinson agreeing to and performing community service.
It's been part of a growing process where I've put that behind me now. It happened. It was unfortunate that it happened. You can't put yourself in that kind of situation, so. You know, I just, you know, worked on making better decisions than I did last year. So.
Cliff has put the situation behind him and moved forward. He now has a solid handle on both his professional and personal lives.
With each time I go out on the court, with each time I wake up in the morning, I think I've learned a little something.
When this season is over, it may turn out to be the all-time year to remember for Clyde Drexler. Steve Jones profiles Clyde and goes one-on-one when the NBA report continues in a moment.
Clyde, the playoffs get tougher with each round, and of course, the key to the Trailblazers' success is playing hard. They played a real hard, aggressive game, game 1 against the Jazz. Can they come back not only with that kind of effort, but maybe even a better one?
That's a good question. I think the Jazz are a very good team. I think when you beat a good team, they usually come back harder the next night. So we're expecting a very tough game, and for that matter, a very tough series. And I know we're going to have to play at our top level in order to win. So we're just expecting to improve the team game by game.
This series is a contrast in styles. For Portland to really play the best basketball, they have to play an up-tempo game. And in game 1, you showed a little bit of trapping tendencies. Will you come back with that and try to keep the game in an upbeat tempo?
Well, I think the up-tempo is good for our team, but I also think the half-court set has been just as good. So any way that they want to play, I think we're very capable of playing. I just think it's a matter of who defends who the best. I think for us, the key is on the defensive end.
You say the half court is just as good. At one time, that was the flaw in the team. When do you think it got to be so good?
Well, I think 2 years ago, we really improved our half court set. The last 2 years, I don't think there's been many teams who are better in the half court set. And, but of course, you're only as good as you play on any particular night. But I think we have the potential to be a very good half-court team.
All right, in a half-court situation, one of the flaws that the team exhibits from time to time is quick shooting. Against the Jazz, that's one thing that I'm sure that Rick has cautioned you about. So how will you have some patience at the offensive end?
I think there's a good mixture in our team, and I don't think there's any team in the league that doesn't take a quick shot every now and then. That's part of the game. I think the game is won and lost on the defensive end. I think you're going to score points, at least our team is. If we defend the way we're capable of, our chances of winning is that much greater.
With the Trailblazers, there seems to be about 2 or 3 levels of defense that they can play. The hardest one makes it suffocating and makes it real difficult for opponents to play, and you play that in stretches of games, and then all of a sudden you'll collapse to one where you'll let your opponent do whatever they want. How can you stay at least somewhere in between the real hard and maybe a little bit softer defense?
I think the For most of the game, I think we play really tough defense. I think when the game has been decided, then you see teams scoring their will, but the game has been decided 90% of the time. So I think when it counts, our team is right there playing the best of defense.
Home court advantage. That's always been a huge factor whenever you play the Utah Jazz. You won game one. The crowd really got up into the game, particularly after you went down. Do you think that helped the team?
Well, I think it really helped to intensify our team on the defensive end. I think our defense really picked up and created opportunities on the offensive end.
The crowd seemed to sense that they feel that they have a special role in this year. Does the team sense that as well?
No doubt about it. I think the crowd was great last year, and they played a vital role this year. I think that's part of our home court advantage. I think that's the big reason home court is so special, because your crowd is in the game, and our crowd has to be the best in the NBA.
All right, everybody wants to know about Utah and why it's so difficult to win in Utah. And when you leave here, you've got back-to-back games. What will be the focus when you go over there?
Well, the number one thing is they have a very good team. That's why it's tough to win in Utah. But also their crowd is pretty good as well, and they seem to play better at home for whatever reason. I think everybody does. But Utah, it's a noticeable difference.
Does the altitude have any effect on any of the teams, any of the players? Do you ever feel it late in the ball game?
Not that I can remember, not that I noticed, not at all.
I mean, it's never talked about, but, you know, it's almost as high as Denver.
Only in Denver do you hear anything about the altitude, because then you see guys about to fall over. They're so tired. But in Utah, you don't hear about it too much, so it's not as noticeable.
All right, that's it.
Portland's Memorial Coliseum, where tonight Clyde Drexler will work his magic along with the rest of his Trailblazer teammates. Both teams are on the floor. We're almost ready for the introduction of the starting lineups and the exciting play-by-play action. Steve Jones will join me in just a moment for all of the commentary, and we'll be ready for an exciting evening of NBA playoff basketball, a game that both teams will be very crucial in deciding the eventual winner of this series. That's tonight's NBA report. Now stay tuned. Blazer Broadcasting brings you all of the action when we return in just a moment.
And yes, now they have that 2 games to diddly lead over the Jazz. Everything went the Blazers' way for 3 quarters. It looked like a Blazers blowout. But Utah came back. The game went down to the last second, but the Blazers win it by 2. More during sports with Bill Walton, Rick Metzger, and Ann Schatz at 11:30. Bill's here now.
And boy, it was so close. This has to give the Jazz a certain amount of momentum going back to Salt Lake City.
I like the close ones. You guys like the blowouts. It's much more fun when it's right down to the wire. I really don't think that gives the Jazz that much of an edge. I think a big blowout for Portland would have made Portland too satisfied. I think that now they're going to go into Salt Lake City with the back-to-back games and have a lot of respect for the Jazz, who came back very nicely at the end there with the help of some very questionable calls by my friends, the referees.
But it makes us too nervous. How much do you think the 2 foul-outs have to do with that close game?
Well, huge. It was a Jerome Kersey highlight film tonight. He was playing tremendous basketball. And then Buck Williams. I mean, Buck Williams and Karl Malone are hammering each other all game long. The game gets out of hand, and then all of a sudden they blow these ticky-tack fouls on Buck Williams. I mean, you can't let that happen. This is contact action out there. As Karl Malone said in game 1, men are made in the paint. There was a lot of men out there tonight turned into boys by whistles.
Let's hope we get better calls later. Thanks, Bill.
Bill doesn't like the referees very much.
But as Rosie Fialo reports, fans are putting together a construction wish list.
Will the new Blazers Arena sport a fountain? Will it still be square? And can they build a parking lot big enough to hold crazed fans? Blazer management hopes to answer these questions in the next couple months. Right now, all they have is a rough sketch of what things will look like. And here's what fans at tonight's game would like to see.
I would like to see champagne served every seat. I think that should be an option.
And how much would you pay for that?
Oh, let's see, maybe $1,000 a night, something like that. The court could be like, you know, here. That'd look good from the sky, from the air, like when every year when the NBA Finals comes here and NBC is showing it on the air, they could show this as an aerial view.
Any special colors you'd like to see in here?
Red, white, and black, every 3 seats.
Yeah, red would be great. Red, white, and black.
That's probably asking too much, but maybe we could spell out things on the seats, you know. Lisa and Mom. And then there will be tons of other people over here waiting to get in line. But they'd have to check with us first. You know, Laker fans are trying to get in because the Lakers aren't good anymore, and Utah fans and Phoenix fans.
Here's the court. We want our seats right here. This is us guys right here. Juan, Robin, and Ron and George, and I'm right on center court right here.
And Rick sits right here.
Yeah, Rick's right over here.
I don't see the Trailblazers.
Trailblazers are right out here. And here's Clyde dunking it right here. Boom. There you go. Boom. Right in there.
Boom. While fans dream about what the perfect Blazers arena will look like, they seem to agree on one thing: a bigger house so more fans can catch the toughest ticket in town. Rosie Fialo, News 8.
Larry, turned into a near nightmare for the Blazers.
Well, at the start of the fourth quarter, I thought tonight's interview with UC was going to be very, very easy. We're just going to talk about how the Blazers dominated, but it didn't turn out that way.
We're picking up the highlights here in the first quarter. Clyde and the gang again off to a quick start and an 8-2 lead. Karl Malone isn't a factor in the opening minutes, but he warms up later in the quarter, drives, and Utah leads by 1. Where would the Blazers be without Jerome Kersey early? He got off to a great start in game 1, did the same thing tonight with 14 early points. Blazers by 3 after a quarter. Next 12 minutes proved to be critical. Clyde heats up with back-to-back three-point bombs. Portland 43, Utah 35. Now the defense. Clyde terrific in the second. Watch him strip Blue Edwards, and then Drexler will jump and block. The Jazz totally rattled at this point. At the other end, Clyde will score on the fast break. 16 points in the first half for Drexler. The Blazers shoot just 44%. They're out-rebounded by 10, but they still lead by 11 points at the break. Everything comes together in the third, and again, it's Kersey with that aggressive play. Jerome drives and jams home, too. A little later, that Blazer transition again. The Jazz shake when they see this coming. Kersey finishes it off with another slammo, and the lead is 19 points. Now, Portland needs to push it up the floor against the Jazz, and that's exactly what they do. Clyde to Terry. The Blazers lead 87-71 after 3. Blazers lead by 23 early fourth quarter, but this is not over yet. Watch out. Here comes Karl Malone. Nobody knows it now, but here comes a major run. John Stockton heats up back-to-back threes, and that 23-point lead is now down to 10. But Buck Williams fouls out, so the middle's a little softer. Blue Edwards flies and dunks to follow. It's suddenly a 6-point ball game. Blazers go 8 minutes without a field goal, and when Karl Malone hits 2 free throws, this thing is tied up at 116 with 14 seconds left to go. 21 free throws on the night for Karl Malone. The Jazz call timeout. They'll run a play here for the Blazers. Terry Porter, this is the game winner. 3.6 seconds left. Porter scores inside, but the Jazz have one last chance. Here's their last effort. John Stockton, desperation. Great defense by Porter. Clock runs out, and the Blazers survive, winning 118-116. To the scoreboard now. Jerome Kersey led Portland with 34 before fouling out. Karl Malone scored 40 for the Jazz, 31 in the second half. Blazers give up 45 points in the final quarter, but the bottom line, they take a 2-0 lead in this series. And I know, Larry, a lot of people at home are wondering how in the world can the Blazers dominate for over 3 quarters and then let it all go in a span of 10 minutes?
Well, they felt very comfortable going into the fourth quarter, and when that happens, usually you're going to change the momentum. They weren't able to turn it back on, though, and by that time they had a couple of players sitting on the bench, starters sitting on the bench. A couple of guys were in the game that aren't normally in the game during crunch time. You had a couple of people foul out, and Buck Williams and Jerome Kersey, and things changed, and it's hard to turn it back on after you've turned it off a little bit. They were playing really the second 12 seconds starting the fourth quarter. In other words, they were milking the 24-second clock, trying to use that to their advantage, and it really backfired on them.
Let's roll the videotape now, and let's talk about what effect this will have on Game 3 Saturday. The Jazz totally out of this one for over 3 quarters, but this run down the fourth really has to help them going into Utah.
Well, it's going to help them, Steve, but if they did not have this run, they're going home, and going home means they're going to have more confidence, and whatever they do, the Coach Sloan is going to say, let's look at what the positives are. Number 1, going home, and obviously now the fourth quarter here in Portland is going to be talked about a lot, and they're going to be very confident.
Blazers, on the other hand, didn't end this game on a very good note, even though they won. So they have to be going to Utah right now a little tight.
Well, they're going to think about it, but again, if they had won by 20, they're still going to go in there and play their game. This is a veteran team. It's a very experienced team and has a lot of character, and they're not happy. Clyde Drexler was not very happy at all at the end of this game and the way he had commented on the way they had played the last 8 minutes. And so with their experience, with the character, they're going in, they'll get it back together, and they'll play fine, I think.
All right, stay with us. Much more coming up for you. Up next, Ron Carlson will join us for Steele. And now we bring in Ron Carlson from the Coliseum. He talked to the players after tonight's game. Ron?
Well, Steve, obviously teams have blown 23-point leads before, but I think it was the way the Blazers did this one, almost like you could put together a how not to tape from this one on how to close out a game. Now, there were lots of missed opportunities at the end that the Blazers were very discouraged about, lots of turnovers, and I think the two things that really hurt were the fact that there were two veterans who, at the end of the game, instead of choosing to run down the clock, chose instead to drive to the hoop to try and get a bucket. As a result, the Jazz got the ball and ran it down the court and scored. So really a very discouraged team, and in a way it's too bad because it ruined what had been 3.5 quarters of great Blazer basketball.
And people say, you know, how can you lose a 20-point lead? But, you know, you're playing an exceptional team, and if you don't execute, if you don't move yourself and move the ball, teams have the tendency to get back into the game, and that's what happened tonight.
We were our own worst enemy. You know, but it's always a combination of things when that happens. We just feel good that we got away with the win. Because they could have stolen one here, which would have been a real tough loss for us. But we made a great play at the end. Clyde Terry had a great read on that to get us and we played great defense in the last play. So, you know, in all that went wrong, the last 2 plays, we finally did something right, and that's what won the game for us.
Played extremely well, exactly. And then to come out and play the last 8 minutes the way we did is ludicrous. I think it's something that we have to work on as a team, and we can't let that happen again in the playoffs. But the good thing is we did win the game, and we have something to build on.
And thank God, because this is definitely one sit down from heaven. He made so many mistakes going in, and we're not really accustomed to making, but we've been making them lately, and we have to get away from that. We just got too stagnant and lost our focus.
Fortunately, we had like a 6-shot lead going into the 18th hole, and we hit our first 3 balls out of bounds. Our first 3 go out of bounds, and you know, fortunately, we birdied that 4th ball. Terry made a putt.
We was right there to win the ball game. You know, we came back from 23 down when everybody thought it was over with. So we feel really good about going home or whatever. And basically, we just have to come out and play and do the job we're capable of doing. And that's basically it.
That's tough fun to lose. I mean, granted, they beat us pretty good for 3.5 quarters, but we didn't make a good comeback, and it hurts to make that kind of effort and to lose by a bucket, so it's a tough one.
Now, on the positive side for Clyde Drexler tonight, amidst all of the discouragement at the end, he did have a very good game as far as assists are concerned, a playoff career record high for him of 15 assists. Now, the injury report, some concern there for the Blazers. Terry Porter with a left thigh bruise, of course, when he ran into Mark Eaton there, had a collision with him. And then Mark Bryant with a sprained right ankle. They will both be judged day to day, and they'll make a final decision on those two before Game 3 begins in Utah on Saturday.
Ron, nice to see Jerome Kersey back into the post-game interview tape.
Yeah, it's very nice. As maybe all of you do or do not know, Jerome was not talking to the media for about 3 or 4 games, and when he was first asked tonight, he just decided not to, and then finally broke down and said, oh, why not? I'll give you guys a couple comments, and it was good to have him back.
Okay, thanks for your report, Ron. Larry, let's take a look at some of the stats now, the key numbers in this ball game. The Jazz outscore Portland 45-30 in that final quarter of play, and Utah will take those numbers into Utah for Game 3 on Saturday. They'll remember this final quarter. Karl Malone really broke out of it tonight, scored 40 points and grabbed 16 rebounds. A real positive stat for the Blazers, Larry. They scored 30 fast break points to Utah's 10. Let's roll the videotape and we'll see just how the Blazers really built that lead tonight and the way that they played solid basketball to build that lead and then let it go.
Well, the Blazers have been playing great defense the entire year, and they picked it up another notch here in the playoffs. And 30 fast break points, only 10 for Utah, is very, very significant.
They'll have to remember that going into Utah on Saturday. Larry, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Enjoy the game Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
All right, Larry Steele. Channel 2 Sports continues.
Analyst Bill Walton.
Thanks, Marcia and Eric. Yeah, you see the 5 in front of us here. 5 down, 10 games yet to go to win the NBA championship for the Portland Trail Blazers. 118-116 the final today. A game that should not have been as close as that final score indicates. So it's good news. The Blazers are up 2-0, but I think they have to be a little concerned about that fourth quarter.
The good news is that no team since the 77 Blazers in a 7-game series have come back from being down 2-0, so the Blazers are in very good position there. But the bad news is, again, they showed a lack of a killer instinct. The Blazers all season long have had good leads and let the other teams back in the game. They did that again tonight. If they continue to do that, they're going to have a very difficult time, much less reaching the NBA Finals, but then trying to win it.
Yeah, I know from an entertainment standpoint, that's great to keep all the fans in the stands to the final seconds and not get them out to the parking lot early. But Rick Adelman has got to be going nutso with this team. We're looking at those big leagues, thinking everything is done, and then having to sweat bullets those final few seconds.
Well, how many times do you see Rick Adelman going like this to his team, trying to get them, urging them on to play intelligent basketball? And that was very, very difficult for the Blazers down the stretch. They made a lot of poor decisions. And then Danny Ainge, gosh, getting the ball in the corner, trapped in the corner, tries to hold it, to protect it. And
I was wondering, what are you doing, Danny? You know, trying to get the ball off the floor.
Danny likes very much to go to the foul line late in the game. He's a great free throw shooter, particularly in the clutch. But in that situation, I believe you have to move the basketball and don't let the referees have a chance to make a bad call like blowing that jump ball. Much the way in 1977, the final game, George McGinnis was able to tie up Bob Gross. Move that basketball, make it hop.
Okay, well, the Blazers do win it. That's the important thing. 118-116, the final. Now, Ann Schatz was courtside, watching all the action. She has all the dribbles, the dunks, the blow-by-blow. Ann?
Man, what a weird game this was. The Blazers owned this baby for 3.5 quarters, picking up where they left off in Game 1 and taking the early lead. Clyde and Jerome were so active. Off the Jazz turnover, the Blazer break in full gear, and Jerome rams it home. He's fouled. 28-25 Portland after 1. Now, the Jazz rallied to go up by a singleton, but not for long. Danny Ainge with a nifty steal. He'll do this gimme alone. Blazers getting it together. That's when Clyde went bonkers. He popped back-to-back three-pointers. The lead was 6 and growing. A lot of the credit has got to go to a hustling monster Blazer defense. Adelman's guys were all over the place. Dial up a 52-41 Blazer lead in a low-scoring first half. Utah in another hole. To the third quarter, Jammin' Jerome was having a ball. The heavy stuff gave Portland the 13-point cushion. Then it's Terry Porter with a couple of trays, everything going the Blazer way. Percy with 13 of his 34 points coming in that third frame. 87-71 Portland. Coliseum was going nuts. That lead grew to 21 early in the fourth, and no one was too worried when the mailman started heating up. I mean, this game was over, right? The Jazz went on a free throw shooting spree and a 21-7 run. How frustrated were the Blazers? Buck fouls out, past Dick Bavetta's backside, and gets the tee. And when Malone hit his 20th free throw to tie the game at 116, 14 seconds left, the Coliseum was in shock. Portland scored only 1 bucket in the last 5 minutes, but oh, it was a biggie. Porter getting it down with just 3 ticks on the clock, Blazers by a deuce. John Stockton couldn't answer at the buzzer as Portland escapes with a 118-116 victory. Rick Adelman, not a happy man.
The team's 20 points ahead. The game should be called the same way it was called for the first, whatever it was, 40 minutes. Should be called the same way at the end. And again, we were our own worst enemy. You know, but it's always a combination of things when that happens. We just feel good that we got away with a win.
You can't let a team, especially in the playoffs, get any momentum. You got to continue to play 48 minutes of high-intensity basketball, regardless of who's on the court. And I don't think we did that tonight.
You know, you don't want to lose a 20-point lead like that. Come down to the last shot of the game. There was some good language thrown around, a little frustration. But then, you know, the best thing about it was we still won.
Now it's on to Utah for games 3 and 4. The Jazz desperately need to win them both. Ann Schatz, Newsroom 6 Sports.
Okay, so the Blazers do have some trying moments down the stretch, but a great second quarter when they really started putting the game away, and then again in the third and the fourth quarter. What was the keys to Portland's success in building that big lead?
I think the key for Portland was Jerome Kersey. He had a great start. How many teams have their small forwards jump center for him? He gets out there, out-jumps Mark Eaton right at the beginning, goes down, gets a couple of quick dunks. He was on fire early. The Blazers didn't go to him too much. Rick Adelman kept him on the bench for large portions of the first half. If he had played the whole game, I know he did foul out at the very end.
He still fouled out, even sitting on the bench
but
for a while.
He should have been in there a lot.
Right.
Things were going so well for the Blazers, keyed by Kersey. They even tried to run a lob play for Danny Ainge. I tell you, that would never work.
Danny, I know you're watching. He didn't really mean that. Oh, yes, he did. Hey, when we come back, Bill will be at the chalkboard. But first, a look at the stats from today's game.
In about an hour.
Both teams were trying to use a lot of two-man games tonight, pick and roll, screen away, things like that. But the way they were getting into it was very interesting. I really liked, particularly Utah, at the start of each half. And they were running a situation where they would put Karl Malone here, Jeff Malone there, great jump shooter here, and John Stockton out here. Now, the Blazers can run a similar set to this, but Karl Malone comes out, steps out, sets a big screen, so Jeff Malone can come off, get into a jump shot shooting situation. That back screen for good basketball players, if you want to get open, set a good screen because that'll really open everything up for you. Then once Jeff Malone is not open here, he fades to the corner, and now we have Stockton who's able to make any kind of play off of Karl Malone in this situation. Plus, if the ball does go to the corner to Malone, the shooter over there, then Karl can come down here. Basically, what is happening here, you have three players setting a combination of screens, getting position on the court where they can execute their jump shots. Unfortunately, for the Utah Jazz, they've got Mark Eaton and Blue Edwards, Thurl Bailey, players who aren't playing well over here on the weak side, and they're totally out of the play, not really able to get involved. The Blazers, on the other hand, have situations where they'll bring a Danny Ainge down here and come down with a down screen, a weak side down screen. Ainge loves to come off and hit that quick jump shot. We have some end-of-the-game video to demonstrate this action.
Blue Edwards with Drexler. Jeff Malone has Danny Ainge, Stockton with Porter. Here we go.
Porter will have the ball. There's Cliff Robinson moving into the high post position, and Drexler trying to receive on the wing. This is where Mike Brown totally fails to step out and block Jerome Porter. Terry Porter arguing, trying to get a call. Terry Porter with the game-winning basket here. Mike Brown should have used that chokehold up at the high post. Now here is Utah's last second play. Notice Karl Malone and Jeff Malone way out of the play as John Stockton has a desperation shot that really had no chance of going in.
Although he was hoping it would, a la Sedale Freed. I'm sure some of the Blazer fans were worried a little bit about that. But let's take Utah's situation now. They're down 2-0. They get blown out of this game, really, but then the last 8 minutes, they have something to hang their hat on. If you're Jerry Sloan, what are you telling the guys now?
Well, Jerry Sloan will grab at any straw right now that he can, but I think the Utah Jazz are in trouble. They're not playing good basketball, no offensive flow. They're really struggling. And plus, when they do get open shots, they can't knock them down. I had a chance to talk to John Stockton after the game about the last second shot, but first I asked Jerry Sloan how he can keep his team from falling behind 20 and then having to struggle back in almost a meaningless comeback that they did have a chance to win, but should never have except for the Blazers' poor play.
Well, that's the thing that we've got to be able to do. We can't lose our concentration. Obviously, the crowd, I think, helped them a little bit in these situations. That's what home court is about. You guys can maintain a little better patience when they're playing in front of their home crowd. But that's where the mental toughness of teams that's really good can really come in and take advantage of you. If you've got the toughness to stay in there and keep the crowd out of it.
You're having a lot of shooting troubles with some of your key players. Any explanation for their difficulties?
I think we were a little reluctant to stay down in the paint. And I think that's one of the problems that hurt us. Karl I thought he looked for the outside shot maybe just a little bit too much again tonight, and I think it got us in trouble.
Well, I think we'd have liked to have gotten something going to the basket, but by the time I felt that I got clear to do anything, time was running down. So I had a good shot at it, just didn't make it.
It looked like a bizarre final play. Karl Malone, one of the key cogs in that offense, totally out of the play, 30 feet away. John Stockton with no options except for Darrell Griffith.
I don't think Darrell Griffith should have been in the ball game at all. First of all, it's only 3.5 seconds to go. Not much time for a pass. Bring your hot hand, Karl Malone, right to the ball. Let him get it and let him drive. As it was, both he and the other Malone, Jeff, went to the weak side. There's not that much time to make that kind of pass.
Good news for the Blazers, though. One other game was played today in the NBA, an unusual matinee affair. It's now even in the Eastern Conference between Boston and the Detroit Pistons. Take a look at actions from this one. Detroit won game 1 on Tuesday. Started out like they would do the same. Mark Aguirre takes it pretty fast. Lays home 2. The Pistons grab an early 4-point lead. But Larry Bird, absent from game 1 because of a bad back, reappeared and ignited the Celts. Nice pass to shot for 2. Boston led 50-48 at halftime. In the third, Joe Dumars put up a very tough shot on the drive. It was a 58-54 Detroit lead, but there was Bird again. I mean, like in feathers and all. An omen, perhaps? Well, the pigeon flew onto the floor, stopping play for a while, and it appeared that Bird owned the joint. And did he ever? The bird flew away. The fans were chanting, Larry, Larry, Larry. Well, 2 birds to contend with, just too much. Larry pops in 16 points, plays 42 minutes with a bad back, and the Celtics win at 109-103. That series now even at a win apiece. They'll be moving now to Detroit for games 3 and 4. When we come back, we'll take a look at what it will take for Utah and Portland to win game 3. But first, a look at the upcoming schedule in the NBA. Confines of the Salt Palace. They hope it will be friendly, but back-to-back games Saturday and Sunday. What's their keys to winning on Saturday, and from their perspective, maybe tying the series over the weekend?
For Utah, they have to control the tempo. They just really have not had any sort of offensive flow at all. Plus, when they do get the ball and get going, they're not shooting the basketball worth a darn. On the other hand, Portland, they've got to play 48 minutes. Tonight, they only played about 42. Let it get away from them, and should have lost this game if Utah could have got off on the last play. Whenever you see Rick Adelman pointing to his temples, that's a bad sign for Blazer fans. Plus, they've got to get the ball consistently to the hot hand. I think one thing the Blazers really have to focus in on here is that it looks like Los Angeles Golden State is going to be a very tough series. The Warriors are playing great basketball. If the Blazers can get quickly done with this series, they can get some rest, get those injuries out of the way. Terry Porter's got a bad bruise on his leg. Duckworth has got a knee problem. Mark Bryant, they could use some rest. They got to go in there and get 2 tough games in Utah.
I'm sure they'd like to do that, too. Let's close up with a little trivia question. You know, Cliff Robinson is gaining a reputation right now as the head man of the headbands. But, folks, he was not the first Trailblazer to wear a headband in competition. Some 16 years ago, a tall, lanky fellow from Southern California donned the old headband. Rumor has it was needed to keep one very large ponytail in place. Heck, this fellow had more hair than the entire current Blazer starting 5 has combined. Clyde Drexler, eat your heart out. Can you name this Blazer? No, it's not Charles Yelverton. Nope, not Bob Berta. But here's a hint. He's one of the sharpest, most enthusiastic, and upcoming TV analysts anywhere. And from the archives, we found the Bill Walton headband.
Oh, my headbands looked a lot better than this.
That's because they had sweat all over them. We washed that one up for you.
I was the first player to wear a headband, or a ponytail, not a headband. Other players, Wilt wore a headband. But, Rick, I understand, you know, you've been giving me a lot of static about my carrot juice, my headband, my beer, my ponytail. I heard you're a fisherman, and you never catch fish.
I catch cold, but I catch a lot of...
I brought your dinner right here. You know,
hey, I'm giving it to me. I want that.
In basketball,
where'd you come up with this?
In basketball, when you make a bad play, they say, throw the guy a fish. Well, there's your fish right there, Rick. You can sleep late tomorrow.
I deserved it, I guess. Thanks a lot. That's it. The Blazers win at 118-116, 2-0. They're heading to Utah. Bill and I will be with you all weekend long. Back to you, Marcia and Eric. That's pretty good. I like it.
Looks good.
Very little gets me down.
Cutters left and right. Has Alla. Will he go to him? Yes. Abdulaziz.
I'm 22 years old, and, you know, I'm still the same person who grew up in New Jersey, whose mom and dad make them take out the garbage every time they go home.
Welcome home, the Western Conference champion, Portland Trail Blazers.
Blazer rookie Alla Abdelnaby may still have to take out the trash when he goes home, but in the last year, his life has changed dramatically. He has gone from a college student who had to scrounge up meal money to a player with a 7-figure contract on what may be the best basketball team on the planet.
You know, you got to knock on wood sometimes and pinch yourself and say, hey, this is all real. This isn't a dream world.
The Portland Trail Blazers select Alla Abdelnaby from Duke University.
1 year ago, the Blazers made Alla their first-round draft pick. But life as an NBA rookie hasn't been entirely free of frustrations. Alla has had to adjust to being the last player off the Blazer bench. On many nights, he never gets in the game at all.
Well, it bothers me all the time. You know, I'd be lying to you if I said, oh, it's okay, I can swallow it and it's no problem. It really gets to me. It's easier to take when I realize that everybody also goes through it on this level. And when my time comes, and I say when, not if and when, I say when, because I think it will come. Hopefully I'll be ready. But where's the water section?
And there have been adjustments off the court, too. His family is back in New Jersey. Never before has Alla lived so far from home. Even grocery shopping by himself is a relatively new experience.
Oh, yes. See, now this is what I do, though. I come here, and I just go up and down the aisle. I don't come here with a purpose, really. I just come here and kind of let it hit me. For instance, I don't need this. There's no mom or dad around to kind of look over you, and you basically do all the watching, you know, over yourself, really. And my family was always a group that did everything together. And now all of a sudden, you know, their son is, you know, 3,000 miles away. And that's something that's hard for them to deal with at times, and it's also hard for me to deal with.
Alla says Oregonians have helped by making him feel so at home. When you're a Portland Trailblazer, everyone wants to shake your hand.
Yep. Here you go.
Handsome.
Thank you.
You watch me all the time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. The biggest asset this city has, or this area has, is its people. How kind they are, how easy they are to get along with, how open they are. Thank you very much. My pleasure.
99 and 599.
There you go.
We're behind you.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Nice meeting you. I enjoy dealing with people. You know, people are super. And I think people, the more you meet, they kind of shape you.
When it comes to recreation, Alla likes to unwind by playing video games or shopping for new threads.
This can be yours for only 80 bucks. Actually, that's not bad.
Alla goes through a clothing store the way he drives to the hoop, full speed ahead.
Ain't showing it right now, but there are just times I like to get dressed up and look halfway decent. Don't try this at home.
Yeah. Alla is having the time of his life this year, but he hasn't forsaken his roots. He may be the only player in the NBA who calls home every day, speaking to his parents in both English and Arabic.
Ahlan. A whole minute. Can you believe it? They let me play for a minute yesterday. This is very nice of them. I talk to my mom every day. That's not an exaggeration. I talk to her every day. I did when I was in college, and I don't want to see her phone bill, and you know, sometimes I don't want to see mine either. Muhammad Sula. You know, I know basketball is temporary. It may be 3 years, it may be 13 years. I don't know. But whatever it may be for all, I hope it'll be as long as it can be.
And rumor has it that Alla's pretty popular with the ladies. A lot of ladies are talking about Alla.
Whoa, they like,
yeah.
Well, they like the way he shoots that jumper.
Amongst other things. Apparently, Alla is very bright and articulate. He graduated from Duke University with a degree in political science, and he says when his playing days are over, which hopefully will be several years down the road, he'd like to go to law school.
Ladies, huh?
That's what I hear.
I just want to confirm the rumor that you just started. Monday night, we have our...
Watch their Jazz come from 23 down in the fourth, only to lose after Drexler fed Porter for the 118-116 win. The escape was also on the Blazers' minds as they practiced this afternoon. Rick Adelman made sure of that. Adelman doesn't chew on his team that often, but he did last night.
I think everybody realized, everybody knows there's a lot of things we could have done better, but, you know, you also can dwell in the first 40 minutes where we were very, very good. And the bottom line, again, is we won the game. And as long as they don't forget what happened in the last 8 minutes.
So unlike Portland's shoot-around, it was serious business at this afternoon's Jazz practice. No lollygagging, laughing, or goofing around.
You can't lollygag around, so to speak. You got to get out and execute and know where everybody is on the floor when something's going on instead of just playing a pickup game.
Ed Whalen, Newsroom 6 Sports.
City. If you thought the Blazers today would still be fussing and fretting about last night's near fourth quarter disaster, forget about it. They were as loose and easygoing as ever today at their afternoon shoot-around. Danny Ainge says the blown 23-point lead is nothing to dwell on.
And we won the game, and I don't even care what happened, you know. Hope we just learn from it and go from there.
But the thing is, we did win. The series is 2-0, and we're going to build on that.
Meanwhile, ticket scalpers have grown pretty brazen in Salt Lake City. This guy was doing business on Temple Drive right outside the Palace. What are you selling these babies for?
They're going for 60 apiece.
Anyone buying?
Oh, yes. I've sold about 30 tickets today.
You sold 30 tickets for 60 bucks each.
And I've been out here about an hour and a half.
This weekend's games could be the last that the Blazers ever play at the Palace. The Utah Jazz are about 3/4 of the way through with a brand new arena.
Yeah, these are the luxury suites. There's 55 of them at the 4th level right here. They range in price anywhere from $40,000 to $100,000.
The folks here in Salt Lake City are very proud of this brand new arena, and they have every right to be. It is going to be a dandy. How proud are they? Well, they made me wear a Utah Jazz sticker on my hat before they'd even let me in the place. I didn't want to. They made me do it. And, oh, yeah, the Blazers are a little banged up these days. Kevin Duckworth has a banged-up knee. Mark Bryant has a twisted ankle. And we all saw what happened to Terry Porter last night.
Yeah, I think it's going to be all right. It's going to be pretty hard to hold me off that game now.
Judging by the way Utah plays at home, Terry will most definitely be needed. In Salt Lake City, Eric Johnson for News 8 Sports.